I'm Emily Hart, 35, Denver-born, steady hands, steadier spreadsheets, and for most of my life, the shadow standing one step behind my family's favorite person. The night everything snapped, the snow outside Blake Street glowed under the restaurant lights. It was my parents' 36th anniversary, a long table, polished glasses, cousins in winter wool, the clink of silver over laughter. My dad stood with the practiced smile of a man used to having the room, and then he decided to sharpen it. To 36 years, to family, and to our pride and joy. His eyes slid past me and settled on my sister, Lauren. He let the silence stretch, a showman who knows exactly where to plant the knife. Honestly, we wish Lauren was our only child. The sound went out of the room like a tide. A fork chimed, then nothing. My mother didn't correct him, just a calm sip, a cool blink. Lauren's smirk curled like a ribbon on a gift she'd always expected. Every eye drifted to me, the afterthought in a dress the wrong color for the celebration, apparently. They waited for tears, for a scene, for the messy girl to prove them right. I didn't give them a show. I set down my napkin, the soft scrape of my chair was the only applause I needed. Enjoy your night, I said, and walked, polished hardwood catching the heel clicks like punctuation marks I'd been denying myself for years. Outside, Denver air bit clean into my lungs. The snow glittered with a kind of honesty the room hadn't had. I stood under a streetlight, watching my breath fog, and realized my pulse had stopped pleading. A life of being the family's unpaid safety net flashed behind my eyes, the $500 I wired every month to patch a sinking shop, the Friday nights I gave to vendor calls, the tax mess I untangled while they cheered Lauren's newest vision board. I had kept their retail store on South Broadway alive in a dozen invisible ways, and the reward was public erasure. I went home, and I ended the arrangement that had been killing me softly. Group chat. 4 names. 1 sentence. I'm done. No more money. No more advice. Good luck. I put the phone face down and let the quiet settle, like snow on an unplowed street. The next morning, the avalanche began. Dad's voicemails, firm, then irritated, then, we need to talk, Emily, like I was the wayward employee, not the unpaid CFO. Mom's email, paragraphs of legacy and duty, all the heavy words they never used when it was my success on the table. And Lauren, a single text, seriously, followed hours later by something colder, you're overreacting. Don't make a scene. I didn't answer. Not the first call, not the 5th. Silence, it turns out, is a boundary with teeth. 2 days later, Lauren went public. A Facebook post, tone-polished, calibrated for sympathy. Some people need to feel important, so they invent drama. Jealousy is sad, but I forgive her. She didn't tag me, she didn't need to. Family, friends, old classmates who still thought she was the bright one, the comments lit up with speculation. Then came the second post, snide and personal, implying my relationships failed because I cared more about numbers than people. I could have answered, could have posted the screenshots of bank transfers, the PDF of my late-night audit memo that saved them from a penalty, the vendor contract I renegotiated while Lauren was curating mood boards. I could have set the record on fire. Instead, I blocked her. I muted the family thread. And I booked a flight to Florida. Grandpa Henry's cottage sat quiet under a sky so blue it felt hand-polished. He was waiting on the porch, a man built out of drywall and stubbornness, with the kind of eyes that see through painted walls. You look like you're carrying a house on your shoulders, he said, and pulled me in. Inside, the fan hummed, the kettle ticked, and something in my chest, finally, unclenched. I told him everything. The toast. The smirk. The years of second-hand praise drifting past me to land on Lauren like confetti. The $500 on the first of every month, the books I balanced while they bragged about her, the tax tangle I fixed on a Tuesday at 1:17 a.m. because the notice couldn't wait. I showed him screenshots, the posts, the comments, the way a lie is faster on the internet than a girl with the truth. His jaw set. They said that in front of everyone? He asked, voice low, like thunder making up its mind. I nodded. He stood. Get my lawyer, he said, not to me, but to the room, to the universe, to the idea that fairness sometimes needs a paper trail. By afternoon, a brisk man in a suit laid out documents on the dining table like tiles. Grandpa was clear. The Florida lots, the rentals, the cash he'd stacked, brick by brick, they would go to me, with a slice to the community center that had kept him company after Grandma passed. Dad, Mom, Lauren, removed. Not as a punishment, he said, but as a correction. I watched you carry them, he told me, signing with a steady hand. You don't need to carry them anymore. I slept that night to the sound of waves and the strange, soft grief of being believed. Back in Denver, the calendar did what calendars do, it kept going. Without my deposit on the 1st, the family store missed payments to suppliers. Inventory that should have been rotated sat heavy on racks. The tax notice I'd warned them about arrived like a winter storm that doesn't care whether you have a good coat. Dad called from different numbers, the tone moving from command to plea to anger and back again. Grief has a dial, too. Mom tried the mythology of motherhood. We are a family, Emily. Families fix things. As if my hands weren't calloused from a decade of fixing. Lauren kept posting, but the wind shifted. A cousin I hadn't seen in 2 years dug up a screenshot of a transfer from my account to the stores. Blurred details, unmistakable pattern. An aunt who'd always hugged me too tightly commented, maybe we don't know everything. Sympathy has a way of looking for facts when shame gets loud. Then the first door closed. A supplier suspended terms. The bank followed with a letter that used words like delinquent and review. The IRS notice, which used words like penalty and immediate. Dad's charm bounced off those walls. Mom took pictures of new sales signs and posted them like prayers. Lauren pitched a rebrand to investors. Her deck had sunsets and slogans and none of the numbers that make a floor hold. Within 3 months, the store's glass went dark. A closed sign hung where I had once taped an inventory schedule. The bank moved first, then the landlord. A cousin texted me a photo, the place where our family pretended to be a team reduced to cardboard and dust. I stared at it in my kitchen, the kettle returning to silence, and felt, not triumph, but the quiet click of a lock that was always meant to be turned. Life did not throw me a parade for that boundary. It gave me work, big work. A tech company 2 blocks from Union Station let me tear apart their budget and stitch it back together with something like grace. Late nights, bright mornings, and a meeting with my boss who doesn't smile easily. You've got the thing, she said. The judgment that keeps businesses from kidding themselves. She mentioned a promotion. I nodded, felt my throat get tight, and went back to the spreadsheet that looked a little like freedom. I rebuilt other things, too, smaller, truer. Kathleen, my friend with a marketer's pen and a nurse's timing, parked herself in my life like a lighthouse. Jazz on Fridays when I could stand the noise. Quiet on Sundays when I couldn't. She never once told me to fix my family. She handed me pancakes across a diner booth and said, you get to pick who calls you home. Brian came later, a structural engineer with earnest hands and the kind of laugh that happens in his eyes first. We met at a networking thing I almost skipped. He admitted he came to avoid grading bridge calcs alone. We told the truth in increments, him about a project that failed because the foundation was compromised, me about a childhood that felt the same. On our third hike, the wind pushed through the pines like an orchestra warming up, and he said, you don't have to be useful to be loved. I made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. Every now and then, the past knocked. Word filtered through cousins that my parents had moved into a smaller place. The 3-bed they had anchored a life inside was gone to late payments. Dad worked warehouse shifts, muscles remembering a younger man. Mom sold crafts online, captions soft and pleading. Lauren pinballed through retail jobs, her interview stumbling over the part where the story requires receipts. Family gatherings happened without us, or perhaps, finally, with an honest guest count. Grandpa sent me a postcard with a pelican and a sentence, "Proud of you, kiddo." I put it on the fridge like a medal. One afternoon in early spring, my mother's name swelled across my phone. The old ache pried at my ribs, the one that believes the call you answer will be the one that finally loves you back. I let it ring out. The voicemail was the same hymn, regret without admission, invitation without apology. I stood in the kitchen and practiced not confusing longing with wisdom. Sometimes it still stings. That night in the restaurant didn't rewrite my nervous system. I walk past a row of winter jackets on sale and think of the ones I balanced on a spreadsheet for a store that never learned the math of gratitude. A song Lauren loved to sing shows up in a coffee shop, and my chest does the old hollow trick. I don't pretend I'm healed by achievement. I don't mistake a raise for absolution. What I have is smaller and sturdier, a circle where my name isn't an afterthought. A job where numbers turn into choices that don't erase me. Pancakes on Fridays. Blueprints on the coffee table that look like a future we can build without anyone standing on my shoulders. And a will tucked in a Florida lawyer's drawer, not because money is love, but because fairness, when witnessed, can feel like air in a room that's been closed too long. If you're listening with a knot in your throat, if your family taught you to be both an apology and a credit card, hear this: the people who keep forgetting you are not the people who get to define you. The check you stop writing won't collapse the right kind of love. The silence you choose is not cruelty, it is stewardship. You are allowed to be the main character of your own life without writing villains into every scene. Some stories end not with revenge, but with a woman walking out of a restaurant, into the cold, and finally choosing herself. I don't need them to say they're sorry. I need to keep setting the table for the ones who show up. And I do. So, what would you do, if you were me? Would you go no contact, negotiate boundaries, or try one last conversation that names the harm out loud? Tell me your country in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. And if this spoke to you, like and subscribe for more true, healing honest stories. Take a breath. Choose yourself. Then choose the people who choose you back. Ban de noi. Kong do so too. Chat GPT de noi. De sui gi trong 12s. Ban noi dung, ban truok chua du di theo tu chuan ban muon. Dui de la fin ban mo rong rat di theo dung voice ready US female, Michelle speed 0.9 pitch -1, Colleen Mach, ko, chon gat non va, cho chien cam suck. Bam chat arc hook conflict betrayal revelation revenge redemption reflection, doi ten vadya dm nu de dung, Emily Hart o Denver. Du gioi han ky thuet, mind mo rong toi de trong mo de fan hoi, nu ban van can ban 80002, cu bao, teep tuc, va min senoi lean mach fan teep theonai. I'm Emily Hart, 35. Denver winter in my lungs and a lifetime of swallowed words on my tongue. People think betrayal is a dramatic moment, a slammed door, a shattered glass, a scream that makes the neighbors look up. But the worst betrayals are quiet. They are the stories told around you as if you are a prop that forgot its cue. They are the toasts made over your head while you hold the check at the end of the night. The restaurant on Blake Street was warm with the kind of laughter that wears its good clothes. My parents' 36th anniversary. White napkins. Seam-pressed smiles. The cousins doing their once-a-year performance of closeness. I sat in the middle of it like an understudy who'd never been called to stage. Dad rose, he always savored the rise, glass tilted just enough to catch the light. To 36 years, to family, and to our pride and joy. His eyes paused on me just long enough to skip. Then he planted the blade. Honestly, we wish Lauren was our only child. Silence has a temperature. It dropped 10 degrees at that table. A fork rang out and then behaved itself. My mother's face did the calm thing, the kind of calm you get from years of pretending storms or breezes. My sister Lauren wore her smirk the way some people wear diamonds, casual, as if it grew there. The room turned its head toward me because that's what rooms do when they smell blood. I didn't bleed for them. I folded my napkin, slid my chair back, and stood. "Enjoy your night," I said, low, steady, and mine. The hardwood caught my heels and amplified them like a drummer who knows you've been quiet too long. Outside, Denver air pinched my cheeks. The snow on the parked cars looked like clean sheets nobody deserved. I breathed for the first time in, I don't know, years. And the realization came like a clear bell: I've been underwriting this family. With money. With hours. With hope. And the return on investment is public erasure. Back home, my apartment felt like the right size. I turned on one lamp. I put water on to boil as if tea could fix the fault lines. Then I took out my phone and wrote a sentence that would change the weather: I'm done. No more money. No more advice. Good luck. 4 people in the group chat. 1 truth. Send. Nights are longer when you stop apologizing. The phone started ringing like a fire alarm I refused to evacuate for. Dad left voicemails with the cadence of a foreman, firm, then impatient, then managerial concern dressed up as fatherhood. "We need to talk about this." We. As if the word could turn a demand into a dialogue. Mom sent emails, paragraphs wound around tradition and duty and legacy, the kind of words that only visit when somebody wants something. Lauren texted, seriously, and then, hours later, stop making a scene. The woman had posted half her life on Facebook for sympathy likes, but I was the one making a scene for going quiet. I did not answer. Boundaries are not speeches, they are refusals. By day 2, Lauren went on offense. A Facebook post with soft lighting and hard implication: some people thrive on drama. Jealousy is sad, but I choose love. She didn't need to tag me, the cousins understood their assignment. Comments bloomed. Then another post, a curated collage of my alleged relationship failures with a caption about workaholics who can't love. I read it once, twice, and felt the old heat rise, the heat that makes you reach for proof, for screenshots, for the kind of public response that would win me 10 minutes and cost me 10 years. I blocked her. Then, because silence isn't the same as passivity, I booked a flight to Tampa. Grandpa Henry's cottage sits 2 blocks from a sky so blue it feels intentional. He's a drywall and decades kind of man, hands nicked by work and a moral compass that doesn't need calibration. He hugged me like a door finally closing. "You look like you've been holding something heavier than yourself," he said. We went inside. The fan hummed. The kettle clicked. And I let the story out the way you empty a house before the demo crew arrives, drawer by drawer, room by room, piece by piece until the echo belongs to you again. The toast. The smirk. The invisible labor. The $500 on the first like a tithe to a god that never blessed me back. The Tuesday night tax panic I solved with a 3-page memo and a pot of coffee that judged me. The vendor terms I renegotiated while Lauren was moodboarding a rebrand investors would ghost. The posts. The comments. The way humiliation multiplies in public like mold in a damp closet. I showed him screenshots, not to win, but to be seen without being revised. His jaw did that veteran thing. "They said that, out loud?" he asked, voice low, like thunder thinking it over. I nodded. He stood with the purpose of a man who builds and knows when to stop the rot. "Call my lawyer." By afternoon, the lawyer's briefcase and Grandpa's resolve shared a table. The will was redrawn with a pen that didn't shake. Florida lots. Rental houses. Cash he stacked the slow way. A portion to the community center that taught him chess after my grandmother died. The rest, to me. Not because money equals love, he said, but because fairness had been accruing interest in his chest for years. I've watched you carry them. You don't need to carry them anymore. He signed. The lawyer witnessed. The ocean kept suggesting we breathe. That night, I slept like the house was finally on someone else's shoulders. Back in Denver, the calendar didn't grieve. It advanced. Without my first-of-the-month deposit, the family store hit the kind of turbulence even loyalty can't white-knuckle through. Suppliers regretted to inform. Fees fattened. A tax notice, the one I warned them would come, put dates into red nobody could charm a way around. Dad's calls jumped numbers. Mom's emails tried a new recipe, nostalgia blended with obligation. Lauren unleashed subtweets shaped like scripture. Some of the family believed her, at first. It's easier to accept a pretty story than an ugly ledger. But a cousin posted a blurred screenshot of recurring transfers from Emily H. to the store. An aunt quietly added, I've seen her help. For years. Doubt, once it learns to walk, doesn't sit back down. The store dimmed. The bank letterhead got braver. The landlord's patience found its end. I didn't drive by, I didn't need to. A photo found me anyway, metal gate, printed sign, closed. In the reflection of the glass I could see what wasn't there, me, past midnight, reconciling consignment tallies while the world slept and my family dreamed in a language that didn't include my name. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like accurate accounting. Work, my work, the kind that earns its verbs, filled the hours the store used to take. A tech firm near Union Station was expanding too fast to notice its knees. They let me rebuild from the ankles up. Budgets that admitted what they were. Forecasts that didn't hallucinate. Meetings where my boss, who measures praise out of respect, said, you have disciplined judgment. Promises of a promotion arrived without fanfare, clean, like truth. I rebuilt a life outside the numbers, too. Kathleen, my friend who can sell anything except her soul, put her laptop down and showed up with pancakes and the kind of jokes you can only tell someone who has seen you cry. She never once said call your mother. She said, pick people on purpose. There was jazz on Fridays when the noise felt like proof I was alive. There was quiet on Sundays when silence needed company. There were plants that didn't judge me for forgetting water once in a while. Then Brian. Engineers have this steady way of loving the world. They check if beams can carry and if bolts say what they mean. We met at a networking event both of us tried to bail on. He admitted he came to avoid calibrating loads alone. We told our truths in increments. His, a bridge design that failed on paper because the soil lied. Mine, a childhood where the foundation was always, later, and the roof was the praise you give a golden child for breathing. On a hike above Golden, wind carving the pines into prayers, he said, you don't have to be useful to be loved. I made a sound I didn't have a word for and kept walking so my legs could pretend that was the reason my eyes watered. News drifted in like weather reports from a city I used to live in. My parents left the 3-bed they'd held like a trophy and found an apartment that didn't know their history. Dad worked warehouse shifts, the kind that scold your back. Mom made crafts and typed captions that sounded like forgiveness auditions. Lauren pinballed between managerial titles that timed out when results were due. At barbecues I didn't attend, uncles who used to love a good boast discovered silence. A cousin told me someone finally said it out loud, you pushed her away, the one who kept you afloat. Grandpa mailed a postcard, a pelican and 5 words, proud of you, kiddo. H. It sat on my fridge like a small sun. One afternoon, my phone trembled with my mother's name. Inside my ribs, the old orchestra tuned up, the one that plays hope until the sheet music runs out. I let it ring. The voicemail poured a familiar recipe, regret without ownership, invitation without apology, scripture without confession. I didn't delete it, not to keep, but to remember that longing and wisdom speak different dialects. The thing about going no contact is people think the absence is empty. It isn't. It's full of your life finally taking up its proper space. Still, honesty time, grief is not binary. A song Lauren used to sing ambushed me in a coffee shop and my chest did its hollow trick. A sales sign in a boutique window made me think of inventory days and my hands finding a rhythm in boxes. I don't soothe those moments with triumph. I don't self-gaslight them with they were worse to you than you are sad about them. Both can be true. The ache doesn't mean the boundary is wrong. It means the wound was real. I started therapy, the kind where the room is not decorated with advice. We did the slow archaeology of why did the good girl wire $500 a month to people who couldn't say thank you. We met my inner accountant, brilliant, bone-weary, and let her put down the tablet. We wrote letters I never sent, practiced sentences I might never say. When you toasted my erasure, you confirmed what my body had always suspected. I was a utility, not a daughter. We rehearsed a different ending that wasn't dependent on anyone learning a new language this late in the book. Revenge, people asked me about it in DMs in careful, curious ways. They wanted the courtroom scene, the public shaming, the speech that makes the camera pan for the standing ovation. I thought about it. I drafted a cease and desist when Lauren's posts crossed the thin line between petty and defamatory. I collected the evidence, timestamps, screenshots, correlating emails from confused colleagues. The letter, crisp, precise, went to her through a lawyer whose sentences don't blink. The post stopped. No apology. Just absence. Sometimes the most satisfying sound is the one you don't have to make yourself. Kept going. I launched a small consultancy at my kitchen table, Heartline Advisory, 2 clients, then 5. I specialized in turning family businesses into enterprises that could survive the holidays. I learned to ask the question at the first meeting, who is the golden child here, and what do they get away with? The room would go quiet. Someone would swallow. Then the work, the real work, could begin. Numbers tell the truth if you let them. So do seating charts at Thanksgiving. Spring arrived rude and bright. Kathleen texted me a photo, open your email. The promotion hit, senior finance manager. The raise wasn't a number, it was a sentence, your judgment is worth paying for. I bought a couch that didn't apologize for taking up space. I hosted people who didn't need me to foot the bill to feel powerful. We sat, ate, laughed, and nobody made a toast that hurt. One evening, I passed Blake Street on my way to a concert. The restaurant was there, exactly where I had left it, not haunted because buildings don't keep our ghosts unless we tip well. I stopped, not to memorialize the wound, but to honor the exit. There's a world in which I stayed. Where I laughed at the joke, paid the bill, fixed the books, wore the invisibility like good wool. There's a world in which my knees never stopped shaking. This isn't that world. Months later, my mother tried a new number. I let it go to voicemail and listened in the parking lot of a grocery store because healing is domestic, not cinematic. We're having a small dinner, she said, voice soft as if softness were currency. It would mean a lot. What it would mean is a reset without repair, a photo without context. I didn't call back. Love is not a raffle ticket you win by showing up enough times. Lauren mailed a card with a photo of a mountain and a single sentence. We were kids in a system we didn't build. I stared at it long enough to hear both the truth and the dodge. Kids become adults. Adults choose who they benefit and who they bleed. I put the card in a drawer with the other almosts. Brian asked me one night, quiet, tentative, if I ever wanted kids. The question landed like a bird that might stay. I want a house, I said, where the loudest thing at dinner is laughter, and nobody gets erased for dessert. He squeezed my hand. Engineering is the art of making loads make sense, he said. We can design that. We did ordinary miracles. Stood in a hardware aisle arguing light temperature like the future depended on kelvins. Burned pancakes. Unpacked a box labeled winter things and found instead the scarf my grandmother knit before memory thinned into air. I wore it and cried in a way that didn't injure anything. Later, we hiked a ridge and watched the city throw gold at itself. He put an arm around me. I leaned. No music swelled. Which is how you know it's real. Here's what I learned, badly, late, but mine, there's a difference between revenge and repair. Revenge rearranges pain and calls it balance. Repair builds a life that doesn't require an audience to be true. Revenge wants them to see. Repair wants you to be able to see yourself, clearly, in a mirror you chose, on a morning nobody curated. If you are hearing this and your chest has started doing math, how many dollars, how many years, how many times you made yourself small enough to fit into a frame that couldn't hold you, let me offer the only calculation that saved me. What is the price of staying, and who pays it? If the answer is you, forever, then pick up your coat. The weather outside is honest. It will sting. It will also tell the truth. Grandpa Henry's will sits in a Florida drawer, not as a trophy, but as a line drawn with love that learned to raise its voice. The store on South Broadway is a space for lease. My parents live in a smaller place with windows that still admit morning. Lauren posts less. The cousins learned that gossip has an ROI and it can bankrupt you quietly. I learned that my name fits in my own mouth, and I don't have to trade it in for anyone else's comfort. Sometimes I imagine a different toast. Not at that restaurant, not under those lights. A kitchen table I haven't bought yet. Friends. Maybe a small person whose forehead smells like sleep. Brian's ridiculous laugh. Kathleen making fun of my labels. Me, raising a glass with a hand that doesn't shake. To the day you stop paying invoices nobody sent you, I'll say. To the day you realize that choosing yourself is not an act of war. It is the first draft of peace. So, if this story found you, wherever you are, tell me your country in the comments. I want to map how far a boundary can travel. And tell me, honestly, would you go no contact, write the hard letter, try one last conversation that names the harm out loud? There's no right answer, there's only the truth that lets you sleep. If this spoke to you, like and subscribe for more true, healing honest stories. Take a breath. Choose yourself. Then, slowly, stubbornly, choose the people who choose you back.